Welcome to YOUCANIC. Today here on YOUCANIC we got a 2019 Nissan Rouge, and we're going to go over how you'd replace the ignition coil and spark plug, or the ignition coils and spark plugs. This is a 4-cylinder motor. It's a 2.0, and so this has so you're going to have an ignition coil on each cylinder, as well as, of course, the 4 spark plugs on each cylinder. But we're going to show you the process of how to do that. So we need to first pull this piece off, and so we've got a clamp over here, and we have a clamp on the back, and these are just spring clamps. So use a good set of pliers or spring clamp pliers to be able to move the spring clamp back. And the same one with the one on the back. And with the 2 springs, the clamps loosened, then this is just held down by some grommets. So just kind of pop it up. And then be able to work this out. And you can set that to the side. And we're going to work on removing this coil, ignition coil, from cylinder 1, as well as the spark plug, and we'll go over that process. So first, you're going to want to disconnect the electrical connector here, pressing it down and pulling back toward you to get it to come undone. And then we got to undo this number 10 bolt. And set that aside, and then you should be able to just pull the ignition coil out. This is the ignition coil. Like you said, you've got 4, so you repeat this process 4 times to go ahead and replace all of these. And then if you're doing the spark plugs, sometimes you might just be doing the ignition coil because you're getting just a random misfire, or a misfire on 1 cylinder or 2. And you can tell that by when you're reading if your engine codes are on, it'll tell you which cylinder is misfiring. And that way you could just go and maybe just replace just the 1 ignition coil, or you can replace all ignition coils if you want. But you can start there. But if you're having a lot of sluggish driving and so forth, then you would go through the process of replacing all ignition coil and spark plugs at the same time. But so you just remove your ignition coil, you take your new one, you put it in and tighten it all back up. But we've removed it so that now we can remove the spark plug that is in there. So we're going to go and remove that. So on this vehicle, you're going to need a narrow socket. I mean, this is a deep socket, but you need a thin wall to be able to get down in there. This is a 14 millimeter. Alright, so with the spark plug loose, because that doesn't have the rubber grommet in it, we're just going to use a magnet to pull the spark plug out. So we do a visual inspection of a spark plug that we pulled out to see that we have, and you would do this with all your spark plugs, but to see how the burn looks, the different colors, and know whether it's been burning well. And also that we don't have oil up here, so that we know that the spark plug has been installed properly before, and no oil has been leaking past it. But everything here, this looks as a pretty good burn, that everything's been doing what it needs to in an efficient manner. So when I got the new spark plug, or a spark plug put back in, So I'm just using my nut driver, and I have just this a glove to be able to hold it in place, because my my socket itself doesn't have a rubber grommet in it. So that way we can hold it into place so that you can get it lined up in the hole and started. And that way you don't mess up the gap that is set. The gaps come preset most of the time now from the store. You can still check it, but this has a iridium double spark on it, and so you would just want to you want to make sure that you don't jam it in there and shorten the gap. But like I said, when you buy spark plugs now, they're pretty much set at the store, and you just want to visually make sure they're good. So we got that all in there. Tighten this. So it's been tightened down. Good to go. And so now, with the spark plug been put in, then you would drop the ignition coil in, press it on, make sure it's pressed on there on top of the spark plug, and then put the bolt back in. We have to move the ignition coil a little bit to line up the bolt in the right spot. So that's been tightened. And then hook that electrical connector back up. And so that's how you replace your spark plug and ignition coil on your 2019 Nissan Rogue. And you would go and do it 4 times all the way across if you're doing it all at the same time. And then the last thing is just to put this, you would put your cover back on and make sure you hook up the 2 airline connectors on the vacuum hoses. Thanks for watching YOUCANIC, where you can be the mechanic.